My name is Lani Keva, and I can see a running comment section or bullet screen floating in the air. The people there all call me a manipulative villainess. In front of the orphanage gate, a teary-eyed couple asked me, "Is there a little girl named Lani here? Around your age, with big eyes?" Before they could finish, I saw a familiar line of text flash in the sky. Here it comes. The scene where the rich parents come to the orphanage to find their daughter is here. Just now, the female lead was reborn, and she's about to become the envied young heiress. In the previous life, the wealthy family discovered that the female lead was their biological daughter lost 6 years ago due to a birthmark. But because the villainess acted so obediently, the rich couple softened and adopted both of them. Fortunately, the clever female lead discovered they favored the villainess. So she framed and slandered the villainess, accusing her of climbing into the brother's bed, which completely disappointed the wealthy family. Finally, the female lead even took this fake heiress to an auction and sold her to a collector of specimens for 100 million, resulting in the villainess being tortured to death. What a satisfying ending. It's a pity that the female lead eventually discovered her heart was weak, and the only person who could donate a heart, the villainess, was already dead. But it's okay, she has been reborn this time. She vowed not only to prevent the couple from bringing the villainess home, but also to take the villainess's heart for herself to monopolize everything. Reading those lines, I smiled faintly and quietly pulled down my tattered clothes to reveal a birthmark on my shoulder, identical to the one on the wealthy couple's daughter. This time, we shall see who steals whose heart. Seeing the birthmark, the couple's pupils suddenly constricted. The woman covered her mouth, tears falling onto her handkerchief. She staggered over, hugged me tightly, and said, "Lani, my daughter, your father and I have been looking for you all these years." The woman's fingernails dug deeply into my back, making me tremble with pain, but I kept an innocent look on my face. Just as the butler opened the car door, hurried footsteps suddenly sounded from behind. "Wait!" Lani Henry, wearing a faded old uniform, with a braid hanging crookedly, and holding half a steamed bun, ran up to me and said, "You can't take her away, I am your daughter." She pointed at the birthmark on my shoulder and continued, "That mark is fake, drawn on with lipstick. I am Lani." The sky flashed with another line. It was the same in the last life. The villainess pretended to be obedient and sweet, causing the couple to adopt her. The female lead, for her benefit, found a way to eliminate the villainess. I didn't expect the villainess to dare to fake the birthmark this life to steal the identity and turn from an adopted daughter into the real heiress. I immediately shrank behind the man, crying as I spoke, "Sister, I'm not lying. The director said this mark can't be removed. It's not drawn on." 3 months before my rebirth, the first thing I did was find a red-hot iron spoon and brand, a mark identical to Lani Henry's, under my collarbone. I applied herbal ash to the wound every day, and 3 months were enough for the wound to look like an old birthmark. As expected, Lani Henry grew more anxious, forcefully pushing me and saying, "You're lying. You're the fake one. Before, you forced Mom and Dad to adopt you, and now you want to impersonate me." She turned to the wealthy couple, her eyes tearing up as if about to cry, and said, "What are you two standing around for? Hurry and take me home. I've suffered enough. I want to go back to the villa and eat seafood every day. You came too late. Do you know how miserable I've been? If you don't give me 300 million in allowance, I won't acknowledge you as my parents." I lowered my head, clenched my fists, and struggled to hold back my emotions. Lani Henry probably thought saying that would make the couple realize that she was the real heiress. But the order of appearance was what mattered. The man's eyebrows immediately furrowed, and he unconsciously pulled down his sleeve to cover his diamond-encrusted watch. The woman gently wiped my pushed, reddened arm with a silk handkerchief, hugged me, and sat me in the back seat. Butler Hubert drove the car. Lani Henry was stunned, along with countless confused comments. But very quickly she reacted, lunging forward to grab the door handle, her dirty fingernails scratching the leather seats. She pulled out a wrinkled candy wrapper and said, "I am your daughter. Why don't you believe me? That's right. Look at this. This is the candy Dad bought me when I was little. Do you two remember?" I burst into choked sobs, hugging the woman tightly and saying, "Mom, I'm so scared. Why is Sister lying? That's clearly the candy the director gave us last week. Everyone got one." In front of the Henry family villa, Patricia, Lani Henry's mother, held my hand. The pearl bracelet on her wrist glittered in the sun, and her voice was as gentle as honey. "Lani, don't be scared. This is our home. Do you remember?" The screeching sound of sharp brakes interrupted my answer. A black Maybach skidded diagonally, blocking the road. The window lowered, revealing an overly handsome face. The young man wore a familiar uniform, his tie loosely draped over his shoulder. His eyes scanned my scratched shoulder, landing directly on the birthmark, and he said, "Mom and Dad really picked up a stray cat." I checked the orphanage's files. Besides the birthmark on her shoulder, our sister also has a mole behind her right ear. On the bullet screen, comments exploded. "Big Brother is mighty, exposing the fake heiress immediately. The villainess doesn't have a mole. I heard the female lead's mole is heart-shaped." I secretly laughed coldly. Why wouldn't I know? I know very well. I was just too lazy to fake more. One birthmark was enough. I tightly gripped the corner of my clothing, forcing a look of fear onto my face. Patricia quickly smiled to soothe me. "Nolan Henry, don't scare her. This is Lani. How could your father and I mistake her? She just recounted many things from her childhood. Come on, get out of the car. Don't frighten her. She has suffered enough." Lani, don't be scared. Your brother just hasn't had time to recognize you. So many people have impersonated you over the years. That's why he's so cautious. He doesn't hate you. I trembled and nodded, but my eyes remained fixed on Nolan Henry. In my memory of the previous life, an identical scene played out. It had been so long that I almost thought Nolan Henry had also been reborn. He pushed the car door open and walked towards me. The silver cufflink on his uniform sleeve flashed as it brushed past the car body. I intentionally tilted my head away, my voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. Brother, don't you still recognize Lani? But I remember very clearly that since I was little, I always liked to cling tightly to the corner of your shirt. Don't you remember? Nolan Henry's eyelashes cast shadows in the sunlight. He suddenly reached out and squeezed my chin with a force that almost etched into my jawbone, and, he asked, then tell me, whose head did you dump the birthday cake on for my 6th birthday? I looked at the silver necklace peeking out from his uniform collar, a flicker of a smile in my eyes. That was the 16th birthday gift Lani Henry bought for him with her allowance before she went missing. In the previous life, Lani Henry often boasted about this, saying how much Nolan Henry adored his biological sister. But this time, the person Nolan Henry spoils limitlessly will no longer be Lani Henry. I collected my thoughts and hesitantly replied, It was the big dog of Mrs. Joyce next door. You snatched my strawberry cake that day, and I was so angry that I dumped the rest of it on his head. I cried as I spoke, my face was full of grievance. Nolan Henry's fingers suddenly tightened, then loosened. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly. It seems you still remember. The bullet screen immediately exploded. That's it? Nolan Henry believed it just like that? Why didn't he ask more questions? If he asked more, the villainess would definitely be exposed. But how did she know so much? She must have extracted it from the female lead. The villainess is so deeply manipulative, preparing in advance to steal the female lead's parents. I chuckled to myself. So what if the female lead came to expose my lies? In the previous life, she only relied on the love of her parents and the spoiling of her brother. But this time, the opportunity was no longer hers. Besides, my parents chose to take me away themselves, so how can they blame me? Thinking this, I reminded myself to act quickly. I had to win the affection of the entire family and become the person they couldn't bear to let go of. Patricia gently pulled my hand and said, Let's go inside. It's too windy out here. She turned to scold, Nolan Henry, what kind of brother are you? Why are you so cold to your sister? That's right, out of guilt. Nolan Henry had spoiled his long-lost sister endlessly. It was that way in the previous life and this life, as long as I play the role of the obedient and clever sister who knows when to advance and retreat, he will soon soften. The crystal chandelier lights fell onto the pristine white porcelain plate. Butler Hubert served the hot mushroom cream soup onto the table. Nolan Henry calmly stirred the soup with a silver spoon, then glanced at me and said, I heard you took drawing lessons at the orphanage. Lani has always loved drawing cats since she was little. Can you draw? My hand trembled slightly. The soup spoon shook, causing the light brown liquid to ripple in circles around the rim of the bowl. Here it comes. Here comes a new test. The bullet screen surged. This time, the villainess is dead for sure. The female lead has her own unique style of drawing cats. The villainess definitely won't know. Patricia slightly frowned and said, Nolan Henry, are you still not done? Could we possibly mistake our own daughter? Lani just got back. Let her eat in peace first. Nolan Henry didn't ask any further questions, just calmly cut his steak. I lowered my head and drank the soup, but my eyes secretly observed him. I saw that he still glanced over occasionally. His eyes were filled with scrutiny. Unfortunately, this time he would only be disappointed. I had lived in the Henry family home for many years in the previous life. Everything Lani Henry knew, didn't know, liked, or disliked, I learned and memorized thoroughly. After dinner, I rummaged through my cloth bag, took out a sketchbook with a parchment cover and handed it to Nolan Henry. You want to see this, right? I opened the sketchbook. Inside, there were a few crooked drawings of kittens, the lines clumsy, and notably, every cat had an unnaturally long tail. Nolan Henry's hand paused as he flipped the pages, his finger touching the rough drawing paper, but he didn't ask anything further. He simply closed it and placed it back in my hand, saying, Tomorrow, I'll take you to buy a new set of art supplies. The bullet screen immediately exploded. He believed it just like that? He was fooled by just a few drawings? It's over! The brother was completely tricked by the fake heiress. If the female lead knew, she would be heartbroken. The rich parents are truly blind. Not only did they mistake their daughter, but they also let the bodyguard drive the female lead away from the orphanage. How is she going to live? I smiled faintly. This was an unexpected joy, but what I wanted was much more. As long as the Henry family loved me more and more, the moment the real Lani Henry returned would be when the game of revenge truly began. From then on, Nolan Henry seemed to completely drop his suspicions and officially began his path of spoiling his sister without limits. The Henry couple also treated me as a treasure in the palm of their hands. Hundreds of thousands in allowance, and custom-made high-end clothes delivered without a second thought. But I wasn't just enjoying myself. That was Lani Henry's vanity. I was different. I used a portion of the money to hire people to monitor Lani Henry, preventing her from returning to the Henry family unexpectedly. At the same time, I registered for countless advanced courses to improve myself. Day by day, I gradually became the Henry family's cherished little princess. However, the inevitable still happened. On my 18th birthday, Nolan Henry drove me to buy a cake. At the corner of the street, a girl holding a garbage bag suddenly appeared, her old uniform covered in oil stains. Looking up, the corner of my mouth unconsciously curved slightly. It was Lani Henry. Since being driven away from the orphanage, she had lived a miserable life. She tried to sneak into the Henry villa but was blocked by security, who treated her as a fraud and refused entry. With nowhere else to go, Lani Henry wandered, then attached herself to a thug, and was eventually treated as his common-law wife and free nanny. Lani Henry was stunned when she saw Nolan Henry. Her lips moved, wanting to speak, but the sound of a truck horn drowned her out. I chuckled, gently tugging Nolan Henry's sleeve and saying, "Brother, that girl over there keeps staring at you. Do you know her?" Nolan Henry didn't even bother to glance over. He just ruffled my hair and said, "Ignore her. I have to take my little princess home quickly or the cake will melt. Then we'll have a little girl crying again." The corner of my mouth turned up. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw Lani Henry still standing in the same spot. Perhaps the day she returned to the Henry family home was not far off. At the birthday party, Radley Henry, Lani Henry's father, proudly showed a contract to her business. Friends, boasting, the star jewelry set designed by Lani has signed 5 endorsement contracts in just 3 months. Profits are up 40% compared to the same period. Our company hasn't had anyone break a record like this in a long time. Lani is truly a gift from God, a pearl in our hands. Nolan Henry suddenly dabbed a smear of cream on the tip of my nose, his voice carrying a slight tone of reproach. Even the pearl in Mom and Dad's hands needs rest. Last time Lani stayed up until 3 in the morning to revise a draft and immediately came down with a fever the next day. I had to take care of her for 3 whole days before she gradually recovered. I plucked at Nolan Henry's collar, wiping the cream smear onto his shoulder, saying it was because I had him to rely on. Butler Hubert nearby was putting an old photo of Lani Henry that had been left on the coffee table into a drawer. Now, photos of me hung everywhere in the house. That 5-year-old photo was no longer noteworthy, and the person in the picture probably needed to be placed somewhere more appropriate. The day after my birthday, I invited Nolan Henry to go to the racetrack with me. Although Lani Henry was despised by the thugs, she still frequently lingered here, trying to seduce rich young masters. Nolan Henry led the horse ahead. When I urged my horse to overtake him, I saw Lani Henry outside the fence, staring intensely at me. Good, she took the bait. On the way back, I intentionally drove the car a little slower. Sure enough, as soon as we left the racetrack, Lani Henry ran out and blocked the car. She screamed, "Brother, I am Lani Henry." She was wearing her uniform, and the commemorative medal from her elementary school was pinned to the collar, something I intentionally left at the thug's door last week. The bullet screen immediately stirred. Finally, this scene is here! Before, the female lead tried to approach her brother many times, but was blocked by the bodyguards. This is the first time she's met him. The villainess is about to be exposed. Real heiress, recognize your sister. I poked my head out and smiled, the sharp birthmark glowing red under the street lamp. Lani Henry glared at me, looking as if she hated me and wanted to crush me, but she knew this was not the time for a verbal fight. She rushed up to Nolan Henry, pleading, "Brother, don't you remember me? When we were little, you snatched my cotton candy and I pushed you into the swimming pool. In the end, we swore that only you and I would know about it. Brother, I am your real sister. That person is an imposter. Her name is Lani Keva. She is not me." The bubble teacup in Nolan Henry's hand fell and shattered, the brown liquid splashing onto his leather shoes. He looked at me, then turned to Lani Henry, who was hugging him and crying. His Adam's apple bobbed, unable to utter a word. As soon as we arrived home, Lani Henry rushed to hug Radley Henry and said, "Dad, I am your daughter." Look at my face. I resemble both of you so much. I am Lani Henry, and she is Lani Keva, a fraud. If you don't believe me, we can do a DNA test. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were sharp. "If I am truly your daughter, will you help me deal with this wretched girl? I will make her pay for all the suffering she caused me throughout these years." I retreated, clinging to Nolan Henry, and pretended to be vulnerable. "Mom and Dad, I will listen to you. If a DNA test can put everyone at ease, I'm not afraid of the pain." I lowered my face to hide the mischievous smile in my eyes, thinking, "Say more, Lani Henry. The more you talk, the more you will expose yourself. The embarrassed ones won't be me, but her biological parents. After all, they were the ones who chose to abandon her." Sure enough, Nolan Henry was unhappy and angrily pushed Lani Henry away, saying, "Where did this crazy girl come from, causing so much trouble?" The butler immediately led Lani Henry into the living room, forbidding her from running around the house without permission. Lani Henry was furious when she heard this. She screamed and lunged at me. Her voice was full of malice. "It's all because of you. You faked the birthmark to try to take my place in this family. Lani Keva, I will kill you." Her fingernails almost grazed my face. Just then, Nolan Henry suddenly rushed out to shield me. Her nails dug deeply into his arm. Nolan Henry frowned, forcefully kicked Lani Henry's hand away and said, "Enough. We'll do the DNA test tomorrow. But before the results are out, if you dare to touch her again, I will make you regret ever showing up in front of us." I turned to look at Patricia. She hadn't said a word the entire time, but her eyes were filled with tears. I understood. In their hearts, they must already have an answer. Although Lani Henry was currently haggard and weak, her face still bore a striking, resemblance to the couple, while my face wasn't the template they were looking for. That's why I took the initiative to bring Lani Henry home, because only then could the game truly begin. Late at night, I held a pillow and stood outside Nolan Henry's room, intentionally dragging my slippers to make a clop-clop sound. The hallway light flickered. I gently placed my fingertips on my left chest. From the comments, I already knew that Lani Henry had a weakened heart condition. Her plan was to use her illness to gain Nolan Henry's sympathy and increase the intimacy between siblings. But I wanted to take a step ahead to be safe. I glanced at the dark corner and saw a hidden figure with exposed fingernails, revealing the clumsy actions of a true imitator. Reborn, and this girl still hadn't learned to hide her emotions. How ridiculous! I walked a few more steps in front of Nolan Henry's door, and the door opened. He asked, "Can't sleep?" I walked in, intentionally sitting on Nolan Henry's desk, where an open album, the one I gave him 2 years ago, was placed in front of him. I gently fell into his arms, deliberately panting heavily. Nolan Henry asked in panic, "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare again?" I grabbed his pajamas and shook my head, my voice trembling. "Brother, my chest hurts so much." I accidentally lightly scratched his collarbone and said I felt like there was a rock pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Nolan Henry immediately picked me up horizontally, moving so quickly that the wind rushed past. When he placed me on the bed, his fingertips were still shaking. He said, "Wait for me. I'll contact the doctor right away." Nolan Henry quickly walked out. As soon as the door closed, I heard his voice turn cold. "If you've hidden enough, get back to your room. The Henry family doesn't need a thief." That sentence seemed to hit a nerve with Lani Henry. She suddenly rushed out, yelling and blaming him. "Why are you so good to her? She's the fake one. Her heart is perfectly fine. You used to say you would protect me." Nolan Henry calmly replied, "Even if that was true, it was when we were little. Now you are just an unreasonable lunatic. If you keep making noise, go back to the orphanage." The door slammed shut, leaving Lani Henry's suppressed sobs echoing in the hallway. The comments in the sky exploded simultaneously. Impossible! In the last life, even though he knew the female lead bullied the villainess, the brother always defended the female lead. The villainess being driven out and sold were all aided by the brother helping the female lead. Why is the brother treating the female lead so badly this life? It's okay. Once the villainess is driven away, the brother will love the female lead as before. Female lead, hurry up and go to the villainess's room and drug her. Rich families care about reputation. If the villainess climbs into the brother's bed, she'll be kicked out immediately. After the comment appeared, in the very next second, I immediately pulled the door open. Lani Henry's hand, which was twisting the doorknob, froze in midair. The anger on her face was instantly replaced by panic and confusion. Sure enough, she also saw those comments. Last week, when I was setting up the plan for Lani Henry to return, I saw the bullet screen inciting her. "Sweetie, just rush to see your brother. You already look so much like your parents now. Your brother will definitely recognize you." Since then, she appeared around the Henry villa more frequently. I slightly curved my lip and decisively exposed her. "You've also been reborn, and you can also see the comments, right? I am just like you." I smiled, pointed at her left chest, and continued, "The game between us officially begins. Let's see who gets to stay based on skill. Remember to guard your heart well." Lani Henry stood frozen for a moment before reacting. She furiously grabbed my wrist. "It was you pulling the strings after all. Lani Keva, stop pretending. If I could drive you out in the last life, I can do it this life too. The comments say I am the female lead of this world." I almost burst out laughing and said, "Is that so? Then we shall wait and see." She still didn't understand that now, in the eyes of this family, there was only me. In the previous life, she relied on the Henry family's indulgence to get whatever she wanted. This time, I had more in my hand than her. I hoped her schemes wouldn't disappoint me. Nolan Henry quickly called Dr. Alvin. After hearing my symptoms, the doctor recommended hospitalization for a heart checkup, which suited my plan. It was just a report. There were plenty of ways to fake it. Under my arrangement, my heart failure report was returned right before the DNA test results were announced. When Radley Henry and Patricia heard the news, they hugged me with pity and said, "Don't be afraid. Mom and Dad will find a suitable heart to save you. Even if you're not our blood, the affection built over the years is real." I cried and nodded, burying myself in their arms. My eyes flickered toward the open living room door. The next second, Lani Henry rushed down the stairs, snatched the paper on the table, and angrily yelled in my face, "Do you have any shame? I am the one with the heart condition. You not only stole my identity but also claimed my sickness. You are despicable. Are you slandering me just so you don't have to give me your heart?" Beside us, Nolan Henry only caught the main point. "Both your heart and Lani's are compatible." Lani Henry was so furious that she was speechless. Before she could refute, Nolan Henry dragged her to a private room and locked the door. He turned to hug me, gently comforting me. "Don't be scared. I will have someone do the checkup, if it truly is necessary." He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. I feigned confusion, looking at the Henry couple. Radley Henry lowered his gaze, coldly looking at the sales report for the new product. The necklace I designed had broken the company's record again. In the face of profit, he wouldn't care about Lani Henry's life or death. Patricia was still somewhat conflicted, but after hesitating for a few seconds, she placed her hand on the birthmark on my shoulder. It seemed the DNA test results were no longer important. The next day, Radley Henry gave the blood test report to Lani Henry. Seeing the results, she rejoiced. "See, do you believe it now? I am your daughter." She jumped up, approached me, and sneered. "Lani Keva, you fraud. Get out of my house right now. Don't worry, I won't kill you yet. I'll let you live a few miserable years, then I'll sell you onto a cruise ship and take your heart for myself." She looked at me, her eyes were full of calculation. But Radley Henry, who had been tapping his fingers on the table, suddenly spoke. "No. In the past few years, Lani Keva has brought the company more contracts than half the board of directors combined. The jewelry she designed has brought immense profit. Now her health is poor, she needs to rest at home. There must be no mishaps." His meaning was too clear. Lani Henry stood frozen, disbelievingly looking at Radley Henry and saying, "What do you mean, Dad? You want to keep this little imposter? What about my years of suffering? I told you her heart isn't sick at all. That report is fake. I am the one who is sick." Patricia awkwardly turned her face away and said to her husband, "Honey, our daughter just came back. Let her stay in the living room to adjust first." Lani Henry screamed, "Based on what? She occupied my place for so many years. That room should be mine. If someone has to stay in the living room, let it be her." Lani Henry raised her leg, intending to kick the chair I was sitting on, but Nolan Henry coldly blocked her. She yelled, "Nolan Henry, has this girl put a spell on you? I am your biological sister." I stood up, the chair leg scraping against the floor, making a harsh sound. I whispered, "It's okay. I can stay in the living room. I'll move out in a few days." I turned to Lani Henry, smiling obediently and pitifully. "You just got back. It's only right for you to stay in the main room." My one step back was enough for Nolan Henry to advance 10 steps. Sure enough, before the Henry parents could speak, Nolan Henry tightly grasped my hand and said, "No need, use my suite. You will stay there." Lani Henry went crazy, smashing antiques in the house. I looked at her. My eyes were filled with amusement. "Go ahead and smash things. The more you smash, the more disappointed your brother and parents will be. Because in a businessman's eyes, between a child who achieves nothing and a child who brings profit, the scale clearly tips to one side." Lani Henry was still screaming. I was already sitting on the windowsill of Nolan Henry's suite, watching him adjust my collar, which Lani Henry had yanked crooked. His fingers trembled, brushing past the scratches on my neck, and he said, "Don't mind her. I'll go with you tomorrow when you sign the contract." I gently blew on the hot milk, my tear-stained eyelashes fluttering, and said, "Do you think I'm too greedy? I'm clearly not a Henry, yet I'm staying in your room." Nolan Henry suddenly bent down, forehead to mine, and said, "I told you, that was my decision. In my eyes, you are never an outsider." He specifically emphasized, "Mom and Dad think so too." I leaned against his chest, the corner of my mouth curving into a smile no one could see. Nolan Henry had taken the bait. If I didn't expose my true identity, how could his feelings for me change? In the previous life, he himself had cooperated with Lani Henry falsely, accusing me of seducing him so I would be kicked out of the house. This time, I would truly seduce him, so he would willingly become my sharpest blade. From outside the balcony, Lani Henry's screams echoed, faintly calling me a fox spirit. Just as I predicted, Lani Henry still used her old trick to force the Henry family to drive me out. But this time, no one wanted to listen to her anymore. Powerless, she resorted to petty tricks. Every day she tried to sabotage me, even hiding snakes in my clothes. She also cut up all my pajamas. These childish antics not only failed to hurt me, but also awakened Nolan Henry's protective instincts. He stayed close to me, inseparable every day. As for me, I didn't say a single word of complaint about Lani Henry. Just a few tears in front of Nolan Henry were enough to make him even more worried. Nolan Henry immediately arranged for Lani Henry to be tested, and the results were, of course, revised to fit my intentions. The examination showed Lani Henry was perfectly healthy, while my report conveniently revealed that her heart was the excellent compatible heart that I needed. Nolan Henry was overjoyed, wanting to invite top experts to perform the heart transplant surgery for me immediately. But I had already prepared a different plan. I didn't need that weak heart, and Lani Henry still had much life value left. It wasn't time to dispose of her yet. Lani Henry, naturally, was unwilling to accept defeat. She returned to cause trouble during my exhibition. My solo exhibition was a resounding success. The Henry parents, following tradition, held a celebration party, inviting all their friends and business partners to congratulate me, praising me endlessly. They forgot that Lani Henry saw and heard all of this. When I wore the silver-white dress Nolan Henry chose and walked downstairs with him, Lani Henry, who was supposed to be in the living room, charged straight into the main hall, holding a large glass jar that emitted a pungent odor and screaming, "Lani Keva, are you very proud? You stole my entire heiress life and then deceived my family." She threw the jar onto the balcony railing. Brown liquid splattered, and a sizzling sound of metal corrosion followed. The guests panicked, screaming that it was acid. I was slightly surprised, unsure where she found the acid jar, but I maintained my obedient role, clinging tightly to Nolan Henry, feigning fear and burying my head in his chest. I was completely immersed in the role, trembling as I said, "Brother, I'm so scared." Nolan Henry bent down, comforting me gently. Patricia had collapsed, screaming, "Put the bottle down immediately! What is your purpose?" Do you want to torture people with this dirty trick? Lani Henry only sneered, yelling hysterically. Purpose? I just want Lani Keva to get out of our house. I am your daughter. Why can't you only see her? Is it just because of some petty pieces of jewelry? She gasped, holding the acid bottle, and rushed toward the display cabinet, splashing the acid directly onto the jewelry I designed. Everyone frantically backed away. The box and necklaces were corroded, destroyed right before their eyes. Her intention was clear, to destroy the material value to make the family turn their attention back to her, hoping to regain favor. But this action instantly turned her into a lunatic that no one dared to approach while she held the acid. I finally understood why in the previous life, she only relied on the absolute indulgence of the Henry family, and now the instigation from the bullet screen had pushed her to a dead end. Lani Henry thought driving me out would regain the attention and love she wanted. But humans are not AI, and the plot doesn't always follow the old script. Amid the whispers of the guests, Radley Henry's face was as black as an overturned pot. When not a drop of acid remained in the jar in Lani Henry's hand, Radley Henry quickly ordered people to restrain her and commanded, "Take this lunatic into a room and lock her up. Tomorrow morning, take her back to the old house in the countryside. She is not allowed to return without my permission." That was his cold, decisive decision. Before Lani Henry ran out to cause trouble, my jewelry exhibition was extremely successful, signing contracts worth nearly $5 billion for the Henry Group. It was clear who needed protection, and only Lani Henry was oblivious. Lani Henry had been so blinded by the bullet screen's flattery that she thought she had the main character, A's halo, believing that crying loudly as she did in the previous life would get her a reward. I unconsciously looked towards Patricia. This time, her eyes were still tearful, but the person she cherished was me. She hugged me, gently comforting me. "Lani, don't be scared. Mom and Dad are here." I silently smiled. Lani Henry was finished. As for those who indulged her and let her kill me in the previous life, it was time for them to pay the price. Lani Henry, being dragged away by the butler, was still screaming my name. I stood on the balcony, breathing in the air. Nolan Henry placed a jacket over my shoulders and said, "Be careful not to catch a cold." I watched the car drive away, intentionally showing a look of guilt as I looked at him and said, "Do you hate me? And what about my heart?" He gently pinched my earlobe and said, "Some people can never be properly raised. Don't be afraid. I will handle everything for you. You will definitely be healthy." He carefully stroked my head and solemnly promised, "I, Nolan Henry, will always stand by your side." He truly was a man who remained consistent. In the previous life, he protected Lani Henry the same way. As for me, just because I was an obedient and understanding child who was brought back to the Henry family, I had to endure Lani Henry's cruel oppression. How much pain I endured being turned into a living specimen in the previous life. So don't blame me, Nolan Henry. I will not forgive Lani Henry, nor will I forgive you. The moment Lani Henry arrived at the old house in the countryside, I had someone send her a file, all the evidence of the shares, real estate, and transfer payments I received from the Henry family. If she wasn't going to sit in this position, someone else had to. I added, "Guard your heart. Don't let it get hurt." The next day, I received the news that Lani Henry was so enraged that she set the old house on fire and shouted that she would return to stab me to death. I watched the surveillance footage of her furious face. I intentionally sent it to Nolan Henry and asked, "Does the old house need to be dealt with?" He messaged back just 3 words, "Leave it to me." But Nolan Henry was truly incompetent. He let Lani Henry return to the villa. I had to make the next move myself, pretending to have a nightmare and asking him to stay by my side. Just as I lay down, Lani Henry, covered in mud, burst into the room, kicking the door open with a fruit knife in her hand. I deliberately nestled into Nolan Henry's chest. He grabbed Lani Henry's wrist, the force strong enough to crush bone, and hissed, "Who let you come back? If you want to die, I'll grant your wish." He dragged Lani Henry to the basement. I followed, seeing her struggle and curse. "Nolan Henry, you are a cold monster. You're bullying me for that lying little girl. I am your biological sister. You have no right to treat me like this." Nolan Henry coldly released her, kicked her onto the cold floor, and said, "I don't have a crazy sister like you." Returning to the room, I looked up at Nolan Henry. My eyes are red, tears falling like broken pearls, and said, "Brother, I'm so scared." She even said she wouldn't just drive me away but would take me to a cruise ship to torture me and take my heart. I just can't bear to leave Mom and Dad. Can't bear to leave you. Why can't she tolerate me? I took a breath, my tears blurring my vision, and continued, "Forget it, brother. Mom and Dad are traveling abroad. Don't tell them about this. I will leave the Henry family tomorrow. That way everyone will be at peace. After all, I can't survive much longer." Nolan Henry's Adam's apple slid slightly. He held me tightly and said, "It's not your fault. You're not going anywhere. Lani, I will handle this. I won't let her hurt you anymore." 3 days later, Lani Henry was personally taken onto the cruise ship by Nolan Henry. I wasn't surprised, as he was the one who took me onto that same cruise ship in the previous life. Lani Henry only targeted me. Where would she get the resources? I only needed to drop a subtle hint, and he did exactly as I planned. Lani Henry was about to experience everything I once went through. But Lani Henry was still reckless. She hid a knife, scratched Nolan Henry's face, and snatched his phone to call Patricia. wailing, "Mom, Nolan Henry and Lani Keva want to sell me at an auction." When Patricia called to ask, I didn't hesitate to send them the surveillance footage recording Lani Henry's dirty tricks, from putting drugs in Patricia's bird's nest, which I swapped out, to sneaking into the study to try to steal company documents, which I thwarted. The couple watched in silence. Finally, Radley Henry merely sighed. Forget it. Let her fend for herself. The news of the cruise ship exploding came when Nolan Henry and I were standing on the balcony. He said, "She's dead. Her heart is being brought back." His voice trembled. He hugged me tightly as if afraid of losing me and said, "Lani, before she died, she sent me a message saying she reported me to the police for illegal asset transfers. But where would she get the evidence?" I silently looked at the distant, starry sky. I had slipped that evidence into the file I sent to the old house. Finally, Lani Henry did one thing that satisfied me. The sound of police sirens echoed. Nolan Henry suddenly laughed, a smile uglier than crying. He said, "You planned everything, didn't you?" Finished speaking, he kissed my forehead, his voice hoarse. "Lani, why are you treating me like this? I knew he loved me, not with brotherly affection but romantic love. But, so what? He personally sent his biological sister to her death." I looked at Nolan Henry, my finger gently touching his lips, and replied, "It's a long story." Police lights flashed on Nolan Henry's face as he was escorted away. His eyes remained fixed on me. As for me, I only felt disgust. He didn't know how many times I had to suppress my body's reaction and endure nausea to avoid changing my expression. During his touch, the man who once raped me, framed me, and then sold me onto a cruise ship for others to torment. Did he think just saying he loved me would erase all the hatred? I looked at the empty balcony and smiled, the scent of freedom lingering in the wind. The day Nolan Henry went to jail, it was drizzling. The Henry couple rushed back. I didn't need to do anything else, just recount the entire process of how their two biological children fought each other. Their backs instantly stooped. Patricia was so distraught she went mad, constantly hugging the old family photo, calling Nolan Henry's name in a daze. Radley Henry collapsed. After signing the share transfer documents on his sickbed, he never woke up again. The liquidation of the Henry family's assets lasted 3 months. From the villa to the company shares, everything eventually came to me. A week later, I held a press conference and announced, "I will donate the Henry family's total assets of $78 billion to the Children's Fund." When reporters asked about my future plans, I didn't answer. I just turned and left the hall. I was perfectly capable of supporting myself. The Henry family's money made me sick. I didn't want a single penny. A message popped up on my screen, reporting that Nolan Henry had attempted suicide in prison by hitting his head but failed. I deleted the message, threw the SIM card into the trash can, and walked forward. Ahead, there was no more Henry family, no more hatred, only the path that belonged to me, Lani Keva.